Hi, I'm Renee Carey, and thank you for joining me today for the story of Goliath II by Bill Peet. Once upon a time, in a faraway jungle, there lived a herd of elephants. Now there was one elephant that was very different from the rest. His name was Goliath II, and he was only 5 inches tall. He was so small, making him very different than the rest of the elephants. But he couldn't even pull up a daisy, and he just always felt like he couldn't match his father, who was Goliath I. Now Goliath I was the head of the herd. He was the biggest tusker in the jungle. He could pull up a whole tree without even thinking about it. And he was a little embarrassed about having such a small son. Why should I have a son that can't even pull up a daisy when I can pull up a tree without even thinking about it? Well, Mama Goliath didn't care about trees or daisies, and she'd tell young Goliath, "You just wait. One day you'll amount to something big. I just know it." So days went on in the jungle, and they do what the elephants do in the jungle. One problem that they had, especially for Mama Goliath, was a tiger named Raja. Now Raja was a very mean tiger, and he had teeth. He had these beady yellow eyes. And he knew that he couldn't take on a whole elephant, but he did think that he could take Goliath II. So he decided that he was going to keep an eye on Goliath Jr. and see if he might be able to taste for himself what an elephant really tasted like. So Mama had to keep a close eye out on Goliath. During the day, he could never leave her side, and at night, she put him up in a bird nest real high up to make sure that nobody could get to him overnight while she slept. Well, one day, the elephants were going down to the river like they did every day. They laugh and play and just get cleaned up and just really enjoy themselves in the river. But Goliath II couldn't because he was too tiny. So Mama Goliath would make a footprint in the sand, and then she'd fill it with water, and then Goliath would play in Mama's footprint. Well, this was getting old for Goliath II. One day he said, "I'm 8 years old. I shouldn't have to play in a footprint. I'm going to run away." So he waited till Mama wasn't looking. Then he decided he was going to get away. So he jumped out of the footprint and ran down the elephant trail away from the river. Well, he was pretty proud of himself. It was a nice, bright, sunny day, and it was quiet outside, and all of a sudden, he heard footprints behind him. He thought, "Oh no, it's Mama Goliath." And he turned around, but it wasn't Mama Goliath. Do you know who it was? It was Raja. And Raja was looking at him going, "Ah." And he couldn't wait to pounce on him. So he did what cats do, and he cuddled down, and he was ready to jump, and he pounced up in the air. But he never came down, because Mama Goliath got a hold of his tail. And she held him up and said, "You dirty scoundrel, you stay away from my son." And she started twirling him around in circles like a yo-yo. And then she flung him so far that he went over the river and on the other side of the forest. Well, they never had to worry about Raja again. As the days were going by, though, more problems mounted, because running away from the herd was not something that they could do. That was the number one problem, and he was treated like a traitor and a criminal with the rest of the herd. Even his father wouldn't talk with him. So Mama had to keep Goliath close and make sure that she would protect him. One day they were going down the trail, and here comes Goliath the first, in the lead like he always was. And all of a sudden something terrifying happened, and he put on the brakes. And right in front of them was a fuzzy little creature. It had a long, skinny tail and beady black eyes. It was a mouse. "Run!" said Goliath the first. "Head for the hills! Head for the river!" So they all went stampeding down to the river, and they all jumped in, and they were trembling. And if you looked at the river, all you could see was their trunks up above the water. All but Goliath the second. Goliath went over to the mouse, said, "Hi." And the mouse said, "Aren't you afraid? Aren't you afraid there, Buster?" And he said, "No, you're the same size I am. Why should I be afraid?" "Why should you be afraid? Let me show you what mice can do to elephants." And he took Goliath by the trunk and he flung him down on the ground and he started stomping on his belly and then he started stomping on his head and then he pinned back his ears and he looked at him in the face and said, "You give up yet, Buster?" Well, Goliath was a little scared, but he knew that he wasn't beat. He took his back feet and he pushed them against the mouse, and the mouse went tumbling, and then they both started tumbling, and they were going through the grass and over to the edge of a cliff. Now, underneath the cliff, it wasn't just grass. There was the rest of the river. And what was in the river? A crocodile, with his mouth wide open, just waiting for something to fall off the cliff. He didn't care what. He'd eat it. Well, the mouse saw the crocodile, but Goliath saw the crocodile too. So the mouse finally goes on top and he pins Goliath against the cliff. And Goliath looked up at him and he goes, "Are you ready to give up, Buster?" And Goliath said, "Not on your life." And he reached back and grabbed his tail again and he flipped him over. This time he flipped him so he was hanging off the cliff. "Oh, hey, Buster, what's wrong, man? We're just playing. There's no hard feelings here. Just let me out. It's okay. It's all right." "You're mean to elephants." No, I was just playing. It was no big deal. Come on, man, let me out. Let me out. "It's all right, Buster. I'll never do it again." "You'll never do it again?" "I promise I'll never do it again. Scout's honor. Not going to be a problem. You win." "Huh. Okay," said Goliath. And he took the mouse and he flung him back over his shoulder, and the mouse ran away. Well, the rest of the elephants had been watching what was going on and were amazed. And what do you think happened now? Goliath got the best seat in the house from now on, right on top of his daddy's head. So as his daddy went through the forest, big Goliath the first, there's little Goliath the second on top of his head in a place of honor. And all the elephants did their very best to watch out for Goliath the second from then on. But who was the most proud? Mama Goliath. She looked at him and said, "You know, Goliath, I knew that you'd amount to something big one day." The end. Thank you for joining